Hi, I'm Joshua, and welcome to Async. This is a follow up from the episode on Art Wants to Be Experienced. And it's a little bit late at night, so I'm recording in studio, which is actually a spare bedroom until I get my home office ready to go. But you know that. You know, I was thinking about the previous episode where you talked about being on video and what that does to you. It is more work to get video set up. So for me, it adds to a little bit of the pressure to make it not a performance, but also I appreciate watching you on video. So that's a little bit of meta. We'll move on, but I don't know. We'll experiment and see if we like it. Random thought that I had today. Um, I have had my new iPhone 16 Pro Max. I've had it for a couple of weeks, and I got my first scratches on it this weekend, or at least that I noticed. There's a few scratches right on the top by the front facing camera, but not blocking it, so it's okay. And it bothered me. I think at one point I may have put it face down on some kind of a surface and got some little rocks on it or something, or some kind of dust. So that bothers me. I like to have my iPhone without any case. I do occasionally use a, what is that magnetic thing on it? Um, MagSafe. No, whatever that company is that make the magnetic pop sockets. That's right. I use that on there, and I I like it without a case. It's just easier to work with, but it also comes with the risk of scratches. So now that it's gotten its first few scratches, I'm no longer worried about it. The first week or two of with an new iPhone, I'm nervous. I don't want it to get that first scratch, but now that it's got it, it's fine. And I would never do this in the future. I wonder if it's almost like take your iPhone, put a little scratch on it, just so you can move on and not be so focused on that detail. All right. Um, talking, by the way, you look good in your lighting, looked fantastic. I love the birds in the background, and hopefully next episode I'll be outside if it's the right time of day. Um, you got me thinking about app names, and I've had some inspiration to keep working on this other app that we've been talking about, a little world-based geography type app. And yeah, I want to try to come up with a name too that might be emoji worthy. But I, as a follow up to the previous episode, you talked about this app, PETA. I love it. I think it's a fantastic name. I think it represents like you've got the shell and then you have the things inside the layers, which can represent the type of content, the type of app that we're talking about here. I think the visuals would be fantastic. I can already imagine the app icon. Yeah, A plus name. And I was thinking about the PITA, pain in the ass naming, like own it. Like you could even say, not a PITA, the PETA that's not a PETA. I don't know. I think you could totally work with that. And I can imagine the panic.com like branding. No, I think it's a great name. I really like it. All right, a couple other things. Follow up on why we create art. Your friend that deletes his art, oh man, I get it. I actually have felt that before where I want to create it for its own sake. But then I have that tension of I want to make art that can exist in the world. Let's try just a little balancing here. I want it to be seen. I do want it to be shared. I want it to be enjoyed. I want it to be appreciated. It's not why I make it entirely, but it's partially why I make it for the appreciation that others have. And I think that tension's important. When I was writing a bunch of novels, the challenge I had is only a few dozen people read it. And it wasn't enough for me to keep going. I wanted more feedback, but I didn't know how to get it. That's kind of my fear, I guess, with making apps or podcasts is I don't need a massive audience, but I love that thousand true fans concept that's been talked about of people who do write in to let me know how something feels and give me feedback. I do appreciate that. It inspires me to keep going. Um, let's see. The other thing, I don't know. I don't think ego is the worst. Yeah, ego's bad, but I don't think that's what we're talking about here. I think it's some level of self worth or self something. The other topic, the muse you're talking about, like, does something come from outside of us? And Stephen Pressfield writes a lot about the muse in the War of Art or the Art of War, whatever one is the opposite of that really famous book. And he talks about Stephen King as well. Capture the muse, benefit from it. I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it's always been a little weird to me. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I do know, man, I've had it. Each time I've written a novel, there's about a half dozen period of times during the course of writing that the character takes over. It is not me. The character decides what's going to happen next. And this is partly a function of how I write, where I write into the dark a little bit. Another great book that kind of recommends this process, where I'm just kind of winging it. And my characters decide what they're going to do. And occasionally they surprise me what they're going to do. And I'll pause, I'll stop writing, and I'm like, whoa, that didn't feel like that was me. I mean, arguably, it could be me, but it didn't quite feel like it. There's something beautiful about when that happens with art that I crave. I want more of it. Um, we're still in follow up here, but social media. I have decided that Instagram for me does not hold the value relative to the energy it takes. And so I follow zero people on it. Well, actually, one person I follow, my wife, because I want to see when she posts pictures of the kids, but it's not that often, so it's not a big deal. I've intentionally decided not to use it at all as a platform, and I opt for Threads, which is its own bag of worms. But I at least feel like if I'm reading text, it's different maybe than pictures and video. And I did have a habit to break on Instagram, so I get your reluctance to use it. If we can get Buffer working, that would help. I'm running into an issue getting it set up. I would love to be able to create the video and then publish through Buffer and have it go everywhere. I don't know if I can get that to work. Um, because yes, I have no desire to be on Instagram as a platform. YouTube kind of makes right because there's great stuff I like to watch on there, but I don't want to be on there too much. So I I'd say that let's keep trying it. If it's more of a drain to make these than it is to benefit from them, we can pivot. Um, I'll be curious how, like, if you tend to consume my videos on YouTube versus a podcast app, that'll be interesting. Okay. I guess my question to you is when should we start going public? When should we start sharing these public? I think we're close. We probably have a rhythm here. I tend to want to wait longer, but maybe if we just go for it. New topic. I've been thinking about this tension in design, and maybe you get this in when you're designing or coding as well. It's this tension between knowing and not knowing what I'm going to do. And I'll clarify this. Um, I have a problem to solve. Let's say I need to build out a feature a certain way. I think through the problem. Maybe I have a colleague I'm working with on it to define it. And then I sit in that space where I wrestle through how that problem's going to work. And my design process is read the problem, think about it, and then look at how other apps have solved it in different verticals, not the same horizontals. That's important to me. Like for instance, if I'm trying to create a modal pop-up, I'm not going to go look at how the competitors do it of the type of app I'm on. I'm just going to go look maybe on mobbin.com at how a half dozen or a dozen other apps do manage pop-ups. And then I'm going to take inspiration from all of those and build out my own. That's obviously a very simple example. That doesn't really require in-depth thinking, but I'll just use it for now. I found that there's this time where I call it audiobook time and music time. I have most of my day, it splits. I have periods of my day where I will just have to listen to music on repeat. There's a playlist I've been listening to it for a decade because I need to solve the problem. I need to think. I need to maybe write it out. I need to sketch it out. I need to read the words I've described and really just wrestle through that problem. And I can do that for a period of time a day, but not the full day. A minority actually. Then the rest of my day is audiobook time where I put on a great book, maybe a fiction or nonfiction, and I now know the problem that needs to be solved. I can switch that side of my brain off and I just go and explore lots of iterations. I run it out, I play with all the different variations, and that's incredibly fun. I love both sides of it, but if I just do the first, the music side, if I do that all day, I get worn out and I don't feel like I can get refreshed. If I just do the other side, I get bored. And so I have this tension where I'll reach periods of my day where I'm ready to pack it up. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but I haven't quite been able to wrap up that music period. So I'm curious, is this a phenomenon you've heard of others? And maybe another way to describe it is the deep work period. Cal Newport talks about how we have maybe 2 to 3 hours of deep work time in us a day, a little more if you're being generous. And I think I crave work that requires the deep work, but if it's only that, then I get worn out. Maybe I haven't explained this very clearly, but I'm just curious if you've had any phenomenon like this as well. Um, and I have that moment when I'm creating where in my brain I'm like, oh, I figured out the problem. And I get really excited because I've been able to wrestle through it. I've sketched it out. I've maybe talked to some colleagues. And then I will switch my iPhone over to a good audiobook or a podcast, and I will just start riffing and running all kinds of iterations of it. And that's like, oh, what's a good metaphor? That's like running down a hill. It's so easy and incredibly fun. But I like the other, I'm mixing all my metaphors here. So I think that's it for now. And sign off.